By gathering some of the brightest young minds in the scientific community, SciUS hopes to inspire the young audience, you, by showcasing what it means to be a scientist. However, science is not just about doing research and presenting your findings. A major aspect of science is communication across disciplines in order to tackle greater issues in society at large. Minds of the future, where we are right now, this roundtable discussion will highlight this, providing a number of SciUS participants representing different disciplines and countries with this stage upon which they can discuss some of these issues. The purpose of this discussion is to raise awareness of some of these issues, but also inspire hope that science collaboration can create a better future. Personally, I was a part of SciUS the first time back in 2020. As you all know, it was during the pandemic, and I met a team from the Federation of Young Scientists that was dedicated to still spread science, even though many obstacles were a part of the reality. I learned something at this seminar that became really, really important to me. Just a few months afterwards, I was hospitalized for 2 weeks because of a major bleeding inside of my body. And I learned something at SciUS about antibiotics and antibiotics resistance that helped me to take my medicine in the right way and helped me to recover. And I want to encourage you to really listen today, because you might not know what you learn and how important it can be for you. To moderate this conversation, we have a very passionate person. She has a lot of passion for education and spreading science to the public and youth. She's the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Nobel Foundation. I want you to give a big round of applause for Anna Sjöström Doagi. Hi, Anna. Thank you for taking the time to moderate this discussion today. Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. So tell us about this passion that you have for spreading science, working with youth and taking time to do this.
So actually, I was young once. I was a young researcher. I made my thesis at the Karolinska Institute. I came from a background where science was very valuable and valid. So I think being here today is something that I would prioritize the most, because I think you are really the most important of this week. And I think also Nobel is the beauty of the Nobel portfolio with science, literature, and peace work. Really is something that I think is inspiring, educating, and also, as you said, you can learn a lot from that. And I think for young people and Nobel laureates, it's a really nice mix.
Thank you so much, Anna. And now, let's present the whole group of young scientists to the stage. A big round of applause. You can keep standing for a bit. And please share with us your name, where you're from, and your discipline, your field of interest.
Okay. My name is Mariana Reis. I'm Portuguese, and I'm currently doing my PhD in comets, space, in Luleå University of Technology, where I work at Kiruna campus.
Applause.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm from Pennsylvania in the United States, and the research that I'm presenting here is on material science and microbiology.
Hello, I'm Max. I'm from Poland. I'm studying law and international relations at the University of Warsaw, and I came here with a project in legal discipline that may help STEM researchers innovate the world.
Hi everyone, my name is Isabel. I am from Spain, and I'm currently doing a PhD at the University of Cambridge, working on genome editing and molecular mechanisms.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Liman Chan. I'm from Singapore, and my field of interest is chemistry and especially materials design.
Thank you. You can all be seated. And as you might notice, there's one seat left. And I'm very honored to introduce to you our honorary guest to take part of this discussion. The Nobel Prize laureate in Chemistry 2023, Professor Moungi Bawendi. Yeah, so I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you a question before we start, Professor Bawendi. You have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and it's for quantum dots. And maybe not all of the young high school students in here knows about quantum dots and what it is. So I was going to take the opportunity to ask you, what's the simplest way to describe what a quantum dot is?
Okay. The quantum dot is a nanomaterial that has a few thousand atoms that sits in between molecules and big objects. And it has different properties that we can use to understand science, but also for technology.
Thank you. And now when we see all of these young high school students in front of us, I was curious, did you know when you were in high school that you wanted to pursue a career in science?
Oh, I had a really good high school teacher in chemistry. And that inspired me to keep going in chemistry and to eventually have a career in science.
Amazing. So what would you say is your biggest motivation right now?
For my work?
Yes.
It's the curiosity of still asking questions about how the world works. In my case, it's how the nano world works. It's full of surprises, and I'm still very curious about why it is the way it is.
Amazing. So now I will give the word and have Anna lead the conversation. A big round of applause for the whole panel.
So, as I said, it's really an honor to be here today with you, this panel, this very distinguished panel of young, brilliant minds, and of course, you as well. But today it's the young that are the VIPs. And of course, all of you are here. And I heard that some of you even came from the south of Sweden. You step up at 5 in the morning to come here. I'm very impressed. Applaud for you. So I'm very happy, and as we have been introducing, and we heard that you came from all over the world, and you came yesterday from the US to come to receive your Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
I did.
It's fantastic. And we will have a very interesting discussion here today. We have some questions that have been prepared, and that are things that are on top of the mind from a youth perspective that we will discuss. And I think science is so beautiful because you become very much of an expert in your field, but you also get to know this, as you said, the curiosity, the need to be a lifelong learner, And I think sometimes the people who get the Nobel Prize, I think you almost get the Nobel Prize in curiosity rather than in a certain subject.
Yes, that's true.
Because all of you, in all the topics, you're really curious people. I think that would be the best advice for you, all the young people here, to continue being curious, and then to be that in whatever you are curious about, because then you come very far. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today. I'm looking forward to hear from you what you have to say, and of course from Professor Bawendi as well. And I think, as you already think, you understood that I think that young people are very, very crucial for a sustainable future. And the future challenges we meet, I think they are very complex by nature, so you need people from many areas, many different expertise, because the problems we are facing are so diverse and complex. So that is why it's so beautiful to have this panel of different expertise to talk about those more global issues that concerns us all. So with that said, I would like to introduce the first topic of today. It's about climate change. In the sixth assessment report by the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, current trends and status of climate change have been summarized. Global surface warming is increasing, and it's driven by human activity. Increasing intensity of weather and climate extreme events has placed millions of individuals at risk of acute food insecurity and reduced water security. These adverse effects are concentrated among economically and socially disadvantaged urban populations. However, there are also positive trends, both in terms of technological advancement and scientific support for climate action. In the past, we have seen global challenges that have been solved. There is an example of, in the mid-1970s, scientists worked together to raise awareness of the ozone layer depletion, and also to what was causing the problem. These concerns led to political action, and in 1987, the Montreal Protocol was signed, which resulted in global ozone depletion and also an initial sign of recovery that was being observed. The research about ozone depletion was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1995. So, looking to the future, when digital solutions become increasingly more common in our society, we also must recognize that their adoption can lead to increased energy consumptions. A peer-reviewed analysis described a scenario for 2027 in which AI servers would consume energy at a scale comparable to the total Sweden's yearly consumption. Depending on whether the data centers get their energy from fossil fuels or renewable energy, AI emergence could increase the world carbon emissions. So, how can we effectively advance society using digital technologies while simultaneously combating climate change? So, I ask you, Max, do you have some thoughts about that?
Well, in my area of expertise, which is mostly law in new technologies and law in the STEM research, it is extremely important that we also look from the side of application, because we have many new advancements in terms of ecology. Ecologists work to find out new causes of global warming. Technologists work to find new solutions. But at the end, there goes to the Kyoto Protocol, where these solutions are trying to be adopted. Then we go to the Katowice Convention in my country, I believe in 2022, where there were new solutions adopted. And I believe that it is really important to finally start thinking that maybe AI, if we know that it may generate ideas that we are not yet aware of, maybe it will help us answer some questions. We also need to look from the legal side in terms of how can we adopt the innovations, because having the innovation done by some of the bright minds, the Nobel Prize winners, or some of minds of the future that also have created some innovations in this field, it is really important. But on the other hand, we also need to think of how can we apply it into our societies, because we know that we've tried applying it person by person, for example, recycling, etc. But I think we need a more systematic approach, and the AI might help us come up with new ideas to create kind of a system that societies as a whole can follow in order to mitigate the climate change, the global warming, and also the food and water shortages around the world.
So being part of the solution,
Exactly.
not the, yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to add something to this, or yeah?
Yes,
Isabel.
thank you, Anna. So coming more from the technical and the scientific platform point of view, so I think it is so important to make sure that AI and other digital platforms have a positive contribution in environmental sustainability. So I think there's a short-term and a long-term alternative. So I think in the short term, which is really important, is to make sure that all the digital platforms that we are using for the generation of AI and other energy-consuming platforms are generated by renewable energy, like resources and materials, and also making sure that they can be reused and recycled, because as technology develops and AI becomes bigger and bigger, we're going to need more and more of this material. And I also think, like, in the long term, if we make sure that the short-term solution is there, it's really going to have a positive impact, because maybe we could even have AI giving us future solutions to this problem.
Yeah, that's of course very interesting. Yeah.
Yes,
Can
if
we
I may add on. When you're talking about digital technologies, obviously, digital technologies will play a huge part in helping to mitigate climate change. For example, if you have renewable energy, right, you're drawing energy from a lot more sources, solar, wind, geothermal, and you, of course, need digital technologies to combine all that energy into the grid. But I think what's more important is to encourage research into these areas. And to do that, we need the cooperation of both the government and various research companies. Because although climate change will save a lot of lives and a lot of livelihoods, they also need to see that it is fiscally beneficial. And I think the way to do that is to have people show their confidence, especially governments, showing their confidence in climate change R&D, giving grants for research, investing in turning like small and medium enterprises more sustainable, and naturally, other people will follow in their footsteps, and this positive cycle will hopefully help to fight climate change.
So you're thinking of investments in the research for new technologies. I would like to ask you, Professor Bawendi, when you do your experiments in the lab, do you ever think about what the climate impact of the experiments you do or the technology you are using, or are you just like, I want the answer on this?
Well, part of the joy of doing fundamental science is, especially on new materials like I do, is that sometimes they touch other areas of technology. And in my case, about 15 years ago, we started getting interested in using the materials for harnessing solar energy in multiple ways, directly using them as photovoltaic converters to create electricity. But also, there's a large group of people in my field that are looking at using the materials for photocatalysis for the creation of fuels, renewable fuels from the sun. And so even though we don't think about our impact when we do experiments on a day-to-day, it's really been wonderful for me to be able to think about how what we learn can touch other parts of human societies, such as the energy sector. And as a result, I've also learned more about the energy infrastructure, the economics of energy, and what, the issues of storage and especially policy, and other materials that could be good for energy harvesting of the sun. And I found that to be very positive. So in terms of the technology, I have a lot of optimism that we have the tools that we need. The part that gives me less optimism is the policy issues, the governments. That is where we need to work hard, is to convince governments to work together to use the tools that we already have, in addition to investing, as you said, in further research and technology. We have in our hands the tools to make a huge difference, and we need to use them.
Do you think scientists have a role to play there, to talk to policymakers about the need for legislation and other rules that need to be applied?
We have a role to play very early on. When I started teaching freshman chemistry about 15, 20 years ago, I would include in my lectures 2 or 3 lectures on climate change and where does our energy come from. And at the beginning, there were always, even though this was MIT, there were always a few students that pushed back on me, even though I was just telling them facts. And I think we have a role to reinforce constantly the science, the facts that are out there, and and try to convince people that this is real, and that there's a way out, there's a way around.
Just want to look. Do you want to add something to the discussion so far, or is it crystal clear?
I could add
Yeah, Daniel.
something to the original question on digital technologies. I think that one big way that those can help address the climate crisis is by increasing participation in citizen scientists, by reporting things that they could see in their own communities through digital platforms, whether that be pollution or acting as watchdogs for various environmental issues that policy hasn't yet addressed. And I think that is a really big way that digital technologies, whether it not be AI, but really engaging people that aren't working in labs but are feeling the effects of climate change and things like that. So,
Yeah, that's very important, of course. You come from very different parts of the world. We're very lucky to have this diverse panel. But have you seen any changes in the last couple of years in a raise awareness of the climate change, and also that led to different actions that are sort of different from what it has been?
I would say yes, but I would also add not enough, because I think we have started seeing some changes, such as the installation of solar panels and the initial investments in technology, as we were just discussing a moment ago. But I think there's still so much to be done. And I think this is not going to be a one single government situation. This requires international collaboration. And I think entities such as the European Commission have already started pushing this forward. So I think investing in the future of renewable energies and installing some plans which are really going to make sure that we move towards being a climate neutral continent are definitely going to have a big impact. But I think it is fundamental to make sure that all the governments work together and we do a coordinated effort to address this problem.
And Singapore is far from Spain.
Yes, it's a more unique community, but I think in terms of public awareness, there's a lot of public awareness. For example, Singapore, I believe, wants to have a goal of net zero emissions by 2050. And you can see the effects of this goal from the community level. Like, for example, on electronic devices, you'll see some energy ratings, which help you determine which devices are more efficient, to the big level. So, for example, encouraging different enterprises to take up sustainability practices and even have chief sustainability officers. But I think there's also some limitations depending on the country. So for Singapore, we are actually one of the most solar-dense cities in the world. We have a lot of solar panels and we are installing more, not just on top of buildings, but even looking into building them on the sea, right? But even with all of these solar panels, because we are so tiny and so dense, we have millions of people crammed into one tiny city, so I still don't think it will be enough to cover even the majority of our energy usage. And like Isabel said just now, it really requires international cooperation because we'll import a lot of energy from our neighbors. And whether the energy we use is sustainable, we have to cooperate with our neighbors and maybe choose which options to pick in order to promote sustainability too.
So a lot of new technologies, new ways of renewable energy with solar panels and investments are needed to talk with learn about different challenges in different fields. When you learn about the things that are needs to be pushed to the future and talk to legislators and politicians and so forth. And also, I guess, very different challenges on different parts of the world. Is there anyone who would like to add anything more in this topic before we go on? Yeah, Max.
I unfortunately, I obviously agree with Isabel Lehman and other speakers on the matter that we have seen changes. We have seen solar panels, new legislation about green zones, about cars. But unfortunately, I think the vision is a bit darker, and Professor was closer to the real vision that we can see, at least in Europe, because I believe we are stuck in a stagnation of ecology. We are stuck in a place that we have implemented solar panels. We are stuck in that we have implemented recycling and electric cars, and we just force them to people. People actually want to use them, but there are also low-income places, not only in Poland, but also in other countries that cannot afford efficient fridges or efficient appliances. And the law just puts the international law, especially the European Commission or the Katowice Convention, puts obligation on countries and on governments to create policy for these appliances to be sustainable, for the electric cars to be in green zones, but the problem is that people don't have any resources to get them. So I think that the idea to actually helping the climate is closer to Professor's idea. We have the tools, we just don't have the right policy to implement it, and I think we should rather focus on implementing the softer ideas, maybe slower, but softer ideas, so that all of the society can implement it in every place, not only in the big income households or big capital cities. Also, the other problem is that we need to find new ways to promote ecology and climate saving innovations, because, as I've said, we are stuck in the stagnation of a few innovations like solar panels, electric cars, and high efficiency ACs and fridges and appliances. But we are not actually looking for new ways. We have amazing innovations about water and water freshness. We have amazing innovations about the recycling and new ways of recycling, usage of PET that Lehman has suggested even on our conference. But we are not implementing it because we are stuck in a stagnation that we're not even trying to look on other innovations that may be even simpler to promote to legislators and for the intragovernmental policymakers like EU or Council of Europe or United Nations.
Thank you, Max. I think you have a lot of challenges and work that can be done. I think, as you pointed out, there are a lot of existing technologies, as you also said. We need to invest in more, and research needs to be done to have new technologies. But we also need to try to get the ones that we have in place and be used, and to convince policymakers also the way of pushing this forward. So many things for you that you can engage in the field of science and work on very, very exciting things that are important for all of humanity and all of us in the future, I would say. So going forward to the future, we turn to the next subject, which is touching this subject as well. I think all of them are touching each other's. But we go to, we will go deeper into the question of AI as a benefactor, and this question has been highlighted with a collaboration with the Luleå University of Technology. So in the present day world, innovative solutions are crucial, and AI has risen a potentially very powerful assistant. Since the launch of ChatGPT, large language model in late November 2022, the general public has transitioned from perceiving AI as a futuristic concept to realizing the very true potential that AI possesses. And it has developed into a groundbreaking computer science field with applications ranging from powering voice assistants to enabling self-driving cars. In today's world, it's not anymore a futuristic dream, but it's actually shaping our society as we speak. But as it gains prominence, it also has raised a lot of concerns and worries. It touching issues related to privacy, ethical decision-making, and the potential for job displacement and democracy. And in this context, the United Nations conducted a study in 2022 to voice the thoughts of young people around the world regarding AI. And the report showed that 76% of young people are concerned about the risks of AI, but 86% expressed a will and an interest to collaborate with an AI in the future. So there are both the risk and the possibilities. So given these considerations, how can AI be used to benefit research and development? And I look to you, and maybe to start, Mariana.
Personally, I think AI is a great tool for paraphrasing. Sometimes it's really hard for me to put my thoughts into cohesive professional sentence, and AI is good at paraphrasing, so I've used it for that, and I feel like it helps put my thoughts into nice phrases. It can help us in, for instance, assistance with some courses. Of course, we need to double check it because AI can make mistakes and does make mistakes a lot, and it's our responsibility to check what it says, if it's true or not. And I think personally, I think we shouldn't look at it as this crazy, dangerous entity. It's not. It can be there to help us, and there's no denying that it's here. So we might as well use it to help us and accompany it instead of denying it or not using it. Yeah.
So it's here, and we have to use it.
We don't have to, but we could. We can. There's beneficiencies in using it.
But do you also see some worries or
overusing it? Not thinking anymore, just doing whatever AI says. We still need to use our brains. Our brains is the most important part of research, of ourselves, of anything, and we shouldn't put all our trust in AI, but by double checking, by looking elsewhere, then we can make sure that we're looking at the better source of information that we can.
So a good combination.
A good combination is mandatory in my view.
Yeah. Daniel, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think one sort of thing we should consider when using AI, especially in research, when it can be a really, really good tool when prompted correctly to write code and streamline processes that a lot of researchers go through. The way that the algorithms are built and the information that they're built off of to make predictions can be flawed, and we might not know it. So really making sure that we understand the limitations of various scientific findings today and how they can impact the findings that algorithms make on their own is definitely a big consideration, and sort of one drawback that needs to be sort of thought about more, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Professor Bawendi, do you see possibilities to use AI in your research?
So we started using machine learning algorithms a few years ago to speed up the acquisition of experimental data, and also for its analysis, and it's incredibly powerful. And I think that any research group that doesn't think about using some sort of machine learning or AI in their work is going to be left behind. So it's an extremely powerful tool that with supervision can really speed things up, speed up the progress of science. It's unfortunate that it's called intelligence, because it's not particularly intelligent. It's an amazing tool, but we need to understand its purpose and where it can go wrong. And I think that as the more we use it and more we understand the possibilities, we'll be more comfortable as a society to use it. Right now it feels a little scary because a lot of it is that it hasn't been around as a tool for so long. But so I'm optimistic that that it'll have a positive impact.
But you don't foresee that you will have a lab consisting of AI colleagues instead of students?
Not at all. The human brain is so far ahead of anything that we've created on an algorithm on the computer. The creativity of my students is unparalleled with anything that comes out of a computer so far. I don't see a change of that for a long, long time. So I'm not worried about that.
So we don't see an AI laureate next year. We don't hope so.
I don't think so.
Max or Marian, or you want to add something in this?
Yes, I would like to say that I agree with everything that has been said so far. But I would also add that I think, especially when using AI, is extremely important for us to stay so critical, because this is operating like a black box, and we cannot take everything that comes out like a universal truth. So I think, hinting at what Mariana was suggesting, I think making sure that every single conclusion that we reach through AI has been rethought several times by us. And so putting this aside, I've also used a lot of AI in my research. So it's actually used a lot in genome editing for the prediction of what is called the guide RNA. And I think it's so powerful in the sense that the processes which can be automated, and that it's more like the technical consideration, and on the technical end, it can help us do it so fast. And I think as researchers, that puts us in a very advantageous situation, in the sense that because it can integrate so much data and it can do so many things that logistically, like us as persons, cannot do, this gives us the space to actually think the bigger questions. So we can use AI for very particular problems and like technical considerations, and we can keep our brains for putting the question in perspective.
So it's really speeding up things. So will there be enough of researchers to keep up with this speeding up? The AI will be so quick to getting all the data, and there needs to be these human researchers that can think about all the data that comes up. You think there will be a lack of researchers? I'm looking at you, Mariana.
I mean, hopefully we'll have many researchers come out of here today, but I think as long as we have curiosity, there will be researchers. As long as you want to keep learning, and I think we should keep learning in general with our lives, there's always going to be researchers, there's always going to be people wanting to do more, wanting to learn more. So I don't think there will be a lack of researchers. I think we might have new fields or new parts in each field, like that's grow because of AI, or something that we weren't thinking now is a great field. Like as science grows, new fields come, new fields disappear a bit. So I think it has the great potential, and I don't think it will replace humans either. Absolutely.
So all of you from, yeah.
If I can elaborate a little bit, I would like to add on to the previous points raised about one of the limitations of AI. So it was mentioned that the results given by AI might not always be correct, and that you always have to check it. But if you look at the other side of AI, the production, right? AI is essentially what happens when you run a bunch of data through an algorithm and train it. But sometimes within that data, you also need to check for certain biases, right? I can give one example, which would be in medicine. If you're training an AI to gauge how people might respond to a certain treatment, for example, you will definitely want to look whether your data set includes people of different genders and different ethnicities. Otherwise, it may not be applicable to everyone, and you may get a wrong result from it. So making sure that our data sets are inclusive and consider a lot of different possibilities, I think, is also important when trying to develop accurate AI.
So the biases of the AI, that what is there as an information basis, it's really important that it's diverse and that everyone and everywhere is represented in the data.
Yes, the algorithm can't have a bias, but the data can.
Exactly. Talking about that and having bias, then, because all of you then in different areas see that there is a potential to use the AI to speed up, to get more information, to search for new data in a way that's not possible to do on your own. Is there a specific challenge for the future that you see that you would really like to be AI to be involved and to be able to solve? Yeah, Daniel.
So I think relating back to climate change that we talked about earlier is one issue that I think could be addressed in a new way through AI. And so one recent innovation was by Google's DeepMind, and they recently published an algorithm where they can more accurately and better predict sort of weather trends over time than previous algorithms that relied on physics-based equations. So instead of using those previous equations, they just use past data to predict future trends. And I think that that can be really, really helpful in sort of putting energy and time into addressing various aspects of climate change that we didn't previously consider, and also prepping for the future when climate change does play out and causing various weather-related issues, that we can have resources in areas that AI algorithms might predict be most effective, whether that be things like sea level rise or having more intense storms or something like that. And another issue in the future that it could be really useful for is in biomedicine, and especially with future pandemics, predicting how various pathogens might evolve and whether we can use AI to sort of preemptively design new vaccines for emerging infectious agents. And especially I think it could have been good in COVID if we could have known how the spike proteins could have evolved, for example, and design our vaccines sort of proactively to address future variation. I think those could be two really big issues that AI could be useful in solving.
Thank you. Pandemic and climate change. Professor Bawendi, do you have something that you would dream for AI to help you to solve or to help humanity to solve?
I don't have anything in particular. I think that AI can be powerful in so many areas of our lives and in society that yeah, it's like asking, who's your favorite child? Yeah, it's all our big problems. I think we can have a role with AI to help us solve it.
Yeah. So concluding that part, I think as we hear, we really need to have both human and AI together. So again, for all of you, it's really important to learn how to pose the question to the AI to be able to get the good answer, and to also to understand the answer that you get and how to use that. That's really what I hear from you, and that you think this is something that really is a very big help to solve the big problems we are facing, and also what everyone touching all the fields we are having. Wonderful, thank you. So then we move into the last topic of today's discussion. So we talk that also something that concerns what we talked about before. So how do we communicate the research that all of you are doing to a general audience? And technology and science, it becomes increasingly important with the more complex society we are living in. And it's very important to communicate about it in a way that is easy to understand and not misleading and incorrect. And at the same time, as we saw during the pandemic, the channels through which information is transmitted to the general public have increased, and it's become harder to regulate those channels, and it has resulted in a very unprecedented spread of misinformation and science denial, and possibly a erosion of trust in science. And with these AI tools, the capacity for this spread of misinformation has increased exponentially. But there is also very good news, because the opposite is that those communication channels can also be used to promote science and to get rapid information spread. as we saw during the pandemic, we never saw this way of sharing data. All scientists around the world talked to each other and shared the new knowledge almost the day when it happened, which was really fantastic. But we also see that these channels can create possibilities for non-professional, in a way, don't take it right, but anyone can communicate science in a way that it's very good. And we see those YouTube channels like Veritasium, Vsauce, Khan Academy, Crash Course, that are very easily accessible and easy to make for anyone, that those science communicators coming from a grassroots level. So, given these facts, how can we effectively, as a science community, combat misinformation within the society? And you, as roles of scientists, what responsibility do you have and what can you do? So, maybe who wants to start?
I believe that the science community is a really powerful social group because the science community is conducted out of Nobel Prize laureates, so people who are considered the smartest people in the world. Also, it is considered out of people who have the most innovative ideas, who start great companies and startups. And I believe that we cannot really, as a science community or generally research community, find channels to communicate our innovations and to communicate the facts that would fight and combat the misinformation. Because all those YouTube channels, the Veritasium, the Crash Course, Khan Academy, they are a good source of knowledge, but they do not communicate new achievements and new advances. They communicate basic knowledge, such as Khan Academy or Crash Course. They teach society new skills or new information about biology. Sometimes they slip up like new advancements like CRISPR, for example, but it's not really communicating. And I believe that we should actually focus on some intergovernmental agencies. In Poland, we have the National Research Board, which works intragovernmentally with Hungary, with Germany, with Finland to promote science and to provide grants for such. And I believe that as a science community, we should act more. And basically, researchers should act more. Because when there was COVID pandemic, there were some doctors on TV who tried to combat misinformation, but they couldn't really get it because their screen time was, for example, 3 or 5 minutes. There were not really any movements, and the populist and misinformation movements were spreading much faster. I believe that people who actually take part in research, who try to research new regulations in this part, who try to find new innovations in biology or physics or astronomy, should actually act on themselves and make communications on themselves, first to the local community and then to a broader national community. And as in that, I believe that there is also a lack in legislation in terms of misinformation. Because before pandemic, there was no law that penalized misinformation and spreading misinformation. And still there is none. Now that we have AI, we know that some AI products may spread misinformation. It's not actually changed, it's not updated. And I believe that if we did one simple change, we would examine how the AI and how the misinformation spreads in the society. We could introduce just a couple regulations that would criminalize spreading misinformation in a larger scale. And I think that would be a huge tool in combating this. Mm-hmm. And it would give scientists a broader spectrum because they could actually find a way to defend the facts and defend the facts of nature in combating misinformation around society, especially the less educated society.
And that's a very important discussion. And when you come to regulations of misinformation and disinformation, you always have the other side of the freedom of speech and how that it can be used then in a way that was not wished for. But so it's very important. I think for you and for your generation, it's such important topics that you need to think about and you need to work actively on for those things to work and for you to understand the information that you see on the social platforms that most of us are on and find information. Mariana, did you want to no, you were, yeah, sorry, I was...
Okay, first of all, for me, this is a topic quite close to my heart because I am quite passionate about science communication, and there are a few factors here. So first of all, as scientists, we can actually reach into the primary sources. Is this working? Okay. We can actually reach into the primary sources and determine whether some media is exaggerated when talking about scientific results. But the second thing, and I think more importantly, is actually empathy. Empathy in both directions. Sometimes it is true, science may produce something that is proven to be not accurate in the future. And I think it's important that people understand that. But nonetheless, it is still our best guide to what works. For example, during the early days of the pandemic, right, you always see the health regulations shifting from one week to the next because we were still learning, right? The global scientific community was still learning about this virus. But when people understand that this is our best shot at stopping the virus, that's when they cooperated, and that's when we managed to learn so much more about this pandemic. And in the other direction too, because as people who are very familiar with science, we may sometimes forget what it's like for the layperson. And sometimes if someone has a misconception, right, it's not hard to use empathy to change their mind in a softer way, rather than shaming someone for not knowing a concept or not knowing the correct information. Because it's been shown that if you approach someone and try to connect with them and understand them, you can change their mind more effectively than if you go in a very hard way. And yes, that's why I think empathy is very important when it comes to science communication.
I think that's a very, very important... Is this working? Yeah. Very important point, that trying to connect with people is the way to also try to then come to the core point of view. And if you want to try to change someone's view, I think also what is important for all of us is the fact of the scientific method. When you, as you say, the pandemic, that was shown in real time to the world. If you are familiar with the scientific method, realizing that it's actually working on the fact that some things are changing when the frontiers of science is moving forward, but that doesn't mean that the whole picture is wrong, then it can be very difficult to understand how it from one day to the other can be some new opinions. Yes?
For me, I think science should be open source. There's still some papers that I cannot assess legally. So and especially with COVID, if there's research that could help save a life, we should have access to it. Not just researchers, but everyone. So for me, I think that's a way also to help a bit of misinformation, is to have research open source available for everyone. Regarding misinformation, it can be avoided, especially more in the research level, by looking into peer-reviewed papers in reputable journals, because there's been growing also of journals, I don't remember the word, but like trying to mimic other journals, so we need to make sure that we're looking into the right journals that we know. It can be hard for the regular public not to know which are the reputable or not reputable journals. But another thing we can do, in general, is to ask questions. Whenever we see a fact on social media or someone is presenting us something, you can ask, what is your source? Can I see it? Can you give me more information? And if you keep asking these questions and you see that it's falling apart, their statement, there's some flaws there, then maybe the misinformation can stop there instead of going further along. So it's also our responsibility as the regular public to ask questions, to maybe hopefully stop misinformation to spread further, because that's also how science in general grows. We ask questions, and it's not necessarily to make the work fall apart, but maybe open other doors, like, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, maybe I can go that. That can also help science and misinformation, I believe.
Thank you. So open sources and also to help for us all to know if it's true or not what we are reading, to ask what's the source? How do we know that? And of course there is a lot. We are rounding up here very soon, but just for you, becoming a Nobel laureate, we're talking about source and what and who to trust. You are now a very, very trusted source, and people will listen very much to what you say. So would you say that in this very short time now, when you have been a laureate, have you experienced a difference when you communicate about your science than before being a laureate?
Yeah, well, the Nobel Prize certainly confers a certain amount of gravitas to what you say, and I've certainly felt that already. You know, when I speak, I think people listen a little bit more carefully. Even my colleagues that I've known for many, many, many years.
That's good. Maybe the AI also will listen to you more carefully. That could be good. So thank you so much. It has been both interesting and exciting to listen to your thoughts, ideas, and passion for science. It's a privilege. And thank you for contributing to a better and a brighter future. And for you, Professor Bawendi, I know your week is so hectic. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here today and to meet all these young, lovely people and the bright minds here on the stage. And I hope you who have been watching the Minds of the Future feel both inspired and engaged to create your own contribution to a brighter future. And please don't let this important discussion end here. You can download a free use of Appendix to bring to your classroom, science club, or family and friends dinners to continue to talk on how to make the future more sustainable and bright. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining Minds of the Future, and congratulations, Professor Bawendi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We will also give you a little goodie bag, and also to you, Anna, thank you so much for moderating. And you as the participant, please stand up, you as well. They need a round of applause. All of you, the whole fantastic panel. You will get a gift certificate where we have put a sponsorship to UNICEF for education for youth. So it's in your name here, and then you, of course, get some candy. Fantastic. Please stay on stage for some pictures. And to you, I say thank you for listening, for joining, and I hope to see you in the future. A big applause.